The exam content consists of three main domains. Unlike the PCC MCC exam, these domains focus primarily on the ICF ethics or competency one. A lot on competency one. You find that 60% is all about competency one. So let's go through this. The first domain on coaching ethics, that's 30% of your entire question set, which is on the ICF Code of Ethics, ICF core values, basically all the documents that I've shared with you guys online before. Everything about the scenarios of ethical considerations and everything about that. Domain number 2, which is definition and boundaries of coaching, it's a subset of the competency 1. Basically, domain 1 and 2, they're all competency 1. Okay. Boundaries of coaching, what's the definition of coaching? So definition of coaching, according to ICF, it's partners with clients through a creative and thought-provoking process to inspire change, maximize potential. So this domain is really focusing on what coaching is and isn't, such as you compare that with therapy, psychology and everything, and how to help clients navigate their boundaries and everything. So this is where you have the document on when to refer client to other support functions. So that document is also found in our learning portal as well. Right? So all this can be found there. So you notice that 60% of the entire exam content revolves around competency 1, core competency 1. This is essentially competency 1. Okay. So which means that if we study the competency and go through the ICF Code of Ethics and also some of the considerations of when to refer someone who has mental health issues or maybe some additional challenges that's beyond the scope of coaching, everything here will be 60%. So for all coaches, you should be able to get full marks for this. Okay, this is easy to get 100%. Then domain 3, which is on coaching competencies, strategies, and techniques, that's 40%. So this is where you focus on the ICF core competencies and other tools and techniques. So we'll cover all of them here. So whatever we cover in class, it's more than enough for you to get full marks. So what we're aiming for is not the pass. What we're aiming for is 100% score. So we always, so for PCC, MCC, it's going to be very, very difficult. But for ACC, your target is 100%. Right. So before this version or before this iteration of the exam, in the past, usually for the learners who learn with me, we try to challenge ourselves to get 100%. Right. So far, the highest score was 89%. Okay. So like missing 11%. So maybe Joycelyn will be the first to get 100%. Or maybe Joe can be the next one. Or maybe Rafti can also. Okay, so 100%. Let's go for 100%. Okay. Now, let's look at how these domains are kind of linked and why is that important. So for the ethics part, it's really about thinking of the ethical practice, which is what ICF is so focused on, which setting the ethical boundaries, understanding what the profession of coaching is and what it isn't, and how is it different from mentoring, facilitation. So you'll see words like coaching and facilitation. What's the difference, right? Things like coaching and mentoring, coaching and psychology, psychotherapy. So these are things that you need to kind of also understand a little bit more. So by definition, coaching, it's all about partnering in person. It's always client-centered, client-focused. Whereas facilitation, it's about a group discussion, right? It's about group facilitating group consensus discussion, where it's very, very different from what coaching really does. Okay, good. Now, let's go deeper into each one of these domains. So for ethics, we're going to look at the knowledge of the Code of Ethics. This is the ICF Code of Ethics, so which is the first one. So the document of ICF Code of Ethics. The second one, it's when conflict of interest happens. So you'll find a lot of questions on conflict of interest. The client is a shareholder of this company, and the coach is also a shareholder of this company, and the client wants some coaching on this, what should the coach do? Or the client wants to offer the coach some financial incentive, what should the coach do, right? Or the coach is coaching the manager and the boss or the team member, and the boss wants to know more about what happened to the staff, or the boss wants the coach to tell the person what to do. So you find all these conflict of interest scenarios that that you'll be asked, and also knowledge of relevant laws, regulations, organizational policies, procedural around confidentiality. So this is basically on confidentiality. So the keywords here, let me highlight: confidentiality, conflict of interest, and code of ethics. This ICF code of ethics. These are the three key bulk of ethics here. Now, one of the key considerations here is that a lot of coaches think that confidentiality means I don't share anything at all. You would share if it breaks boundaries. So, for example, let's say right now, the client tells you, "Oh, coach, actually I stole a piece of paper from the office." Okay, and I didn't tell anybody. Okay, and then he says, "Can you please don't tell anybody because we have confidentiality, right?" Okay, what would you do if the client tells you that I took a piece of paper from the office and to bring back home, and you know that you have confidentiality agreement with the client? What would you do? Let's ask everyone.
Well, I don't know. I mean, for me, if it's just a piece of paper, a blank paper, then
Blank paper.
I'd probably just keep the confidentiality.
Okay. Just a blank piece of paper. Okay. Now, what if the piece of paper contains printed information of the company?
Yeah, I mean, then it's certainly it's a valid reason for to break the confidentiality, and then need to report this to the relevant person in the company about
Mm.
this.
Okay, so now you realize that there's this what we call a violation of organizational policies, which is the organization is the sponsor, they paid the money for the coaching session, and so confidentiality doesn't cover everything. Where there's a breakage of law or local regulation or organization policies, that's when confidentiality doesn't cover. So if it's something simple, like not so gray, like such as taking a piece of paper or a company pen back home to use, those are not so gray. Generally speaking, most people, it's acceptable to take one piece of paper home for your note taking or whatever. However, we can challenge that grayness or the scale of grayness. If I take 10 pieces of paper, blank paper, would that be okay? What do you think if it's 10 pieces?
It's getting grayer and grayer, right?
Yeah, it's going to get gray, right? Then 50 piece, 100 piece. Okay, once you reach 100 piece, we think that maybe not quite right anymore. Something tells us it's not quite right. One piece of paper we can still kind of understand, but 10, 100 piece, what about charging your phone in the office? Is that stealing?
No.
Okay, I think it depends on the organization policies, right? If they have
Yep.
certain very explicit guidelines that you shouldn't do this, then you'll be violating it.
Yes. So for the role of the coach, I need to understand the organization policies. If I'm coaching the organization, for example, if the organization says that you're not supposed to charge your phone in the organization, but the client tells you I'm charging my phone in organization, to you it may be no problem. But because there's an organization policy that says you cannot, it's called stealing. Then you'll be stealing. For example, I used to work for the public sector, and it was illegal to charge your phone because it was considered stealing. Yeah, stealing electricity from the taxpayer. So end up everybody have to bring extra phone or extra things. Right? So it's very, very interesting, right? So again, these are very, very strange things about confidentiality, but that's where we got to consider what are the boundaries of confidentiality according to the law of the land, the regulations that's put in place by the coaching contract or the organization policies. Okay, so when you read this part of the question, just know that these are the few things you need to think about before answering the choices. Yeah. Okay. The next one is the boundaries of coaching. So you need to memorize the definition of coaching. Okay, by memory, who can recite the the definition of coaching here? Anyone can? Okay, you must, okay, by the time you go for the exam, you must memorize it, because definitely there'll be one question. Definitely there'll be one question asking you on this. Yeah. So there are two components here. There's a few components. One, it's the coaching is partnering. So this word partnering the client So partnering client, this one part, through a creative and thought-provoking process. So two things, creative and thought-provoking process. Okay, so there's two components. You'll see this word creative and thought-provoking process. Through, okay, to do what? So once you have creative thought-provoking process, to inspire change and maximize potential. So the outcome is two things, inspire change and maximize potential. Not to force change, but to inspire change. Inspire change because it's client-led at the end. Client will choose whether they want to change or not to change. And to maximize potential, because that could be, their potential could be even higher. So there'll be these few components: partnership, creative, thought-provoking, inspire change, maximize potential. Okay, so if you see any of these catchphrases, most probably that will be the answer. That's the definition of coaching from ICF. Okay, then you need to also have the working knowledge of all the different professions, such as therapy, counseling, mentoring, consulting. The key difference is that coaching is client-centered. So you'll see the word client-centered, client-focused, client-led, and then it's coaching. Future-oriented. These are all the coaching stuff, right? Future-oriented. Now, therapy, it's past, emotional past, typically, right? Deals with a lot of past issues, emotional past. So if you see something like, a client comes to the coach with a lot of emotional past, wanting to talk about her emotional past, what would you do as a coach? Okay, so that will be more of therapy. Counseling usually involves a lot more about also a particular challenge, the past challenge, and a lot more exposition. Tell me what's happening. Today, some counselors are using coaching techniques as well to help the client move forward. Right, but counseling has a lot to do with the situation, the problem. Explain more about the problem. Coaching, the problem is not the problem. We're trying to help the client to move beyond that problem. Okay, mentoring, it's someone who has expertise in that particular domain. So if I have like 10, 20, 30, 40 years of expertise, I can mentor someone. I'm giving knowledge transference. So typically for the role of mentor, it's someone who's more experienced in the same industry, same field that I'm doing the mentoring. Now, today, mentoring is also kind of merging into this coaching thing as well, where the mentor is now what we call mentoring in a coaching skill set. So you see more and more mentors not just giving the answer straight away, they use coaching skills. So I can be a mentor, but I use coaching skills. I can be a coach, but use mentor skills. So I need to know that coaching is a process, right? But when I'm using a skill or using a technique that belongs to one of these domains, it doesn't mean I'm doing that domain, because ultimately coaching is future focused, client-led, client-centric. Okay. And then consulting, it's really solution. I telling you, so it's really solution focused. I'm giving you the solution. So this is typically what are the questions you ask you. You also see words like facilitation. You see words like supervision. So facilitation, it's really about just facilitating conversation. There may not be a common shared outcome, or the partnership may not be as close as what coaching does. Okay. Then another part is this part about mental health. Okay, so today a lot of coaches say I'm a mental health coach, but they don't have a medical degree to do mental health care. So for coaches who are doing mental health coaching, if I'm a doctor, a certified medical doctor, or board certified professional, or someone with the real professional certification in mental health care, I need to know the boundaries of mental health care, because mental health is a very big thing. It covers things like suicidal ideation, depression, to simple things like anxiety, or focus, to even simple areas like I just feel nervous, I lack confidence, I feel overwhelmed. So the role of the coach, I can help in a certain segment of mental health, but not in the full spectrum of mental health, because mental health is a huge spectrum. Yeah. So as a coach, I need to know if the client, if the scenario is saying that the client is facing a lack of confidence and feels a bit challenged, feels a bit stressed, what should the coach do? Right? If the client is feeling a bit stressed, well, the coach can continue coaching. But if the client is feeling stressed to a point of suicidal thoughts are coming in, what should the coach do? At that point, the coach should release, partner with the client to work with a professional, right? A real professional to support the client through this, right? So here it's where we also have to notice the signs of mental health conditions that may block the process of coaching. So if there's repeated patterns where the client is absent from coaching, the client is using words like I just want to die, I want to end my life, or I'm very, very depressed, I'm taking a lot of medication, I'm having a lot of nightmares, I cannot sleep well, or I'm very, very bulimic, I'm not eating anything. When we start seeing things that are beyond the scope of coaching, that falls into the sphere of that requires medical attention, that's when we got to refer the client outwards, to all this professional help. So you start seeing all these things happening. So that is the domain of boundaries and definition of coaching. Okay. Then we have this third domain on coaching competency, which is on contracting. Contracting basically means coaching agreement. Okay, so that's the coaching agreement, the formative and the sessional agreement. So this is where the knowledge of how to contract the client through the formative or sessional agreement, knowledge of the ICF core competencies, the 8 competencies that we cover in class, knowledge of goal setting and motivation. This is what we cover in class as well, which is what are the drivers? Why do people, or why are some clients motivated to do something, or some of them are not? Is it more intrinsic? Is it more extrinsic? Knowledge of variety of coaching techniques, tools, and resources. So whatever that I covered in class with all of you, ACC or PCC or MCC level, more than enough for all this. Okay, so by techniques here, you don't have to study the 100 techniques. Whatever we cover in classes covers everything here, so don't have to worry too much about that. Okay, you will not be asked questions like, they'll give a description, and you will not be asked like, what technique is this? Okay, so it's not going to be testing you what technique is that. They're going to test you about the application of that technique. Right? For example, the client is the client is exasperating or sharing a lot of things, right? What is the best option for the coach to do next? Hold a space for the client. Give a pause. Use silence to facilitate reflection, right? So these are techniques. So the techniques are not a particular proprietary technique, but rather the general techniques that ICF advocates for.